Hello, my name is Tim, the Tabletop Optimist, and I would like to welcome you to Level 1 to Now. Level 1 to Now is a series where I talk to awesome people in the TTRPG community, hoping to learn more about who they are and discuss how we can make a positive impact to the community. Every interview, I will find out how they started out to where they are now. So let's find out some awesome things about some awesome people together. Today, we are joined by part of the Dodoborne Podcast. The Dodoborne Podcast is a Daggerheart actual play where we follow the adventures of the Dodos. Rowan Collins as Pistachio, Joe Diametti as Kapi, Annie Hawthorne as Crank, and Isaac Allen Burns as their GM. We talked about how they started out in the TTRPG space, why they chose Daggerheart as the system for their actual play, and so much more. Make sure to follow them on their socials. Links are provided below. And before we get started, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Now, let's jump into the interview. This kind of goes out to all three of you, but I talked to Rowan a little bit about it on Tuesday. But what got all of you into TTRPGs, and how long have you been playing them?
First, me, because the least.
Yeah.
Sure, I'll go first. So, about 10 years ago, I had a group of friends who loved board games. We play board games a lot, probably like every other day. And at the time, I was in grad school in the first year of it, where I was a research assistant. So I had a little more free time on my hand. And at one point, one of them bought the starter set to Dungeons and Dragons: The Lost Mines of Phandelver. They were like, "Oh, we should play this. We should try it." And so it sat on a shelf for about 6 months because no one wanted to GM. So I was like, you know what? If we're gonna do it, I will take the time. I will open it up and I will read it. And we played a couple games of it, and almost immediately I was hooked because I realized that I could just kind of do anything. So for those, the first adventure of Lost Mines, spoiler alert for a 10-year-old module. So you get attacked by goblins, you go to a cave, and you find a guy there, and this guy is like, "Oh, here's where the rest of the story is. We need to go save the guy." And I was like, what if I put another person in there who's actually a bad guy and like stabs him at night and then runs off and is like, the Black Spider sends his regards. And I did that, and I poisoned one of the people, and they were like, "We gotta get this guy. Oh my god." And it went so great, and I was hooked forever. I was like, I can just kind of, oh wow, we can just make it whatever we want. This is crazy. And so then from there, it was just sort of, now I have an obsession with GMing, and everybody I met for like a good 8 years, I'd be like, "Oh yeah, I play TTRPGs, like, oh, Call of Cthulhu. Oh yeah, like Fiasco. Oh my goodness, Thirsty Sword Lesbians. Yeah, we should totally do it." And I would get as many tables as I could, and it just went from there. So that's what got me into it, is just the insanity of making shit up and doing bits with your friends.
If you could put a number to it, or just like a kind of like a range, how many campaigns, whether short one shots, shorts, or long form campaigns, how many do you think you've ran?
A countless amount of one shots,
Mm-hmm.
and one, two, three, four campaigns that started and didn't go for as long as I wanted to,
Mm-hmm.
for various reasons, mostly scheduling issues and people
Yeah.
having children and moving away and all this stuff. And then I do have one campaign under my belt that lasted 4 years, that went from 1 to 20 and ended very spectacularly. So I only have one. Hopefully, whatever happens with the Dodos will be a second campaign that goes from start to finish.
I was gonna say
But
like 1 to 10 now should be a little bit
10,
easier. Did you guys level up at all during the Dodo board? Did
I
I?
don't, you have to find out. You'll have to listen to find
Oh, okay.
out.
Sorry, so I didn't know if I like missed that because I wasn't like as familiar with like the cards or the beta rules. It's like I read the beta as much as I could. I get distracted a lot, so it's harder for me to like sit down and actually read something. But yeah, I was like curious. It's like I don't know if I ever noticed, but
I will tell you, you didn't miss anything, and that after every few sessions, we'd be like, that typical, "Hey Isaac, can we level up now?" And so yeah, you didn't miss anything, I guess.
oh, okay. What about you, Joe?
Somebody to like reach across the table and be like, "Rowan, don't spoil that."
Rowan's our Tom Holland of the.
I'm gonna have to talk about
Um,
it the whole time.
Uh, so I'm very new to TTRPGs in general. I probably, what is it, 2025? So I had a traveling job across the United States in 2011, and I had to find time with a podcast. And at the time, I was a really well, and I mean, I still am, but I really, really like Community. So
Oh,
that led me
yeah.
to the Harmontown podcast. And so, at the end of almost every episode, him and Spencer and Kumail Nanjiani and like all that crew would play D&D. And I was just so I was so enthralled with the storytelling and the creativity. And through that, a lot of people were very clear about, as they got into screenwriting or filmmaking and all of that stuff, that, that was kind of a key part of their growing up. And that was also a really big part of my growing up. So I just had always felt that I missed it. And so I always wanted to play it. And I just, I don't think I ever ended up in the right circles. And then Isaac adopted me one day and took me to a one shot. And I remember in that one shot, me and someone were fighting over a baby dragon. And if it was a 1 to like 10, I got the dragon for the D20 roll. And if it was an 11 to 19, the other person did. And if it was a 20, the third person did.
The third person who did not at all
Yeah,
want
didn't even
anything
want
to
the
do with
dragon. And so that one got the natural 20. And we were, I don't know, it was just such a cool moment that I was hooked ever since. And Isaac has been nice enough to take me along that journey through other TTRPGs.
I think that's one thing I'm kind of learning is like a lot of people kind of like around our age, we didn't really get in. A lot of people didn't really get into it till probably about like their late 20s, which I went to my first like anime convention when I was 19, and I still felt like I was like I missed out on so many like good years of it.
Yeah, I mean, and, it's been kind of cool to see like the last 15 years or so really make it a lot more cool and popular, like Stranger Things and that kind of stuff, kind of bringing it to light. So I think Harmontown and that stuff. So I think that helped as well.
Okay. And Rowan, I know you gave a kind of a little bit more of a longer description, but some, I would say probably the people who are going to watch this are probably about the same people who are going to watch the one with you. But if you want to give another description of kind of like where you started and everything.
Yeah, I guess I could go ahead and say that I started in college when I was like 18 from a game shop that was across the street from my dorm, and we walked there in the middle of the night as 3 femme presenting people wanting to play D&D, and got hooked from that ever since. So that's the short version of what you can find in my other interview.
Well, yeah, if you were watching this, if you're watching this, then you should watch it. Then you probably did watch the other one, but if you haven't, then watch it.
Do the click the link below.
Hit that like button.
This
Hit
one
that
thing I
button right
also
there,
need
yeah.
to remember is to
Hit that bell, comment and subscribe.
yeah, that's one thing I also need to remember is to move my body around to say like, oh, click up here or do this. But it's just I'm so used to sitting still
We can do
that
that
I
for
just
you.
can't. Yeah.
You have incredible like locked in posture. So
Yeah,
I don't know where it comes from. A lot of us did kind of like what Rowan said, and you guys said we all started off with D&D. But what was it about Daggerheart that stood out to you and made you decide that this was the system that you were going to want to use to make your first podcast?
you want me to take? You got it? You want me to take it?
I'll go first.
Okay.
Hey, it's me, Isaac Allen Burns. Your GM here to tell you. So I played a lot of different systems, D&D primarily, and the way I got into Daggerheart is a friend of mine who is a big fan of Critical Role wanted to play Daggerheart in the beta stages. They were like, "This game's came out. It's like, this and that and this and that. Please check it out. Isaac, can you please run this game?" I was like, "Sure." And I was reading through because the only thing I knew about it was a 2d12 system, right? And I was like, well, whenever I do a one shot, I think of it very strongly in like 3 acts, role playing, exploration, combat in that order. And I was like, the hardest thing for me is combat. I'm not a combat focused person. So I was like, let me just look at the adversaries. Let me look at the enemies, see what they got going on. And I kid you not, when I opened up the beta and looked at the adversaries, the way that the stat blocks were laid out was the exact same way that I had been laying out all the monsters in Dungeons and Dragons because I was sick of all the stats. I was absolutely done with all of the superfluous, useless information I felt like I was getting. So I would just write out pretty much exactly how they did it in Daggerheart. And so when I read that, I was like, oh, this is interesting. They have very similar sensibilities that I do as a GM. And then I saw environments, which had answered the question for me of like, how in the world can I make the world around it interesting that isn't just, me trying to remember in my head what it is. And then the more I read on it, when it comes to like things like countdowns, even, there was so many tools that me as a GM were given instead of having to come up with or read separate articles about or beta test myself to support gameplay mechanics within the narrative space of the game.
Mhm.
And it was just very exciting to see. And it told me that if I were to run this game, I would be given enough tools to set a foundation that I can actually move forward with stories that I feel like my table wants to tell instead of having to sort of fit it into spaces it may not fit within
Mhm.
certain mechanics. And so then when we started playing it, it was so smooth with the way that I run games and the sort of narrative focus that I have. So it felt just very comfortable. It felt like an old sweater that I've never worn before, yet feels like I've had it forever. So that's why I personally was drawn to Daggerheart, was that reason. So
Yeah, the 2d12 kind of stood out to me as well. As I was telling Rowan on Tuesday that the when you roll like first to succeed or fail, it's like 1 to 5, 5 to 10, the difficulty settings. But it's like it was always kind of difficult for me to figure out, okay, what happens with that. So when the 2 to 12 was like you roll or you succeed or fail with fear, you succeed or fail with hope, it really helps the GM narrate what happens because we all have an idea of what hope and fear is. And that I felt like it was just kind of like giving a little bit of assistance to the GM in an area that I felt like I needed assistance without knowing I needed assistance. So it's like,
yeah.
yeah, if somebody rolls a natural one, we can all come up with a really funny way that natural one results. But it's like anything stuff in between, it's a little bit more difficult to say like, okay, well, am I doing too much or am I doing too little? So that's why I like
Yeah.
with like hope and fear.
Have you ever rolled a dice just to like, let's see what happens? I'll roll a dice and it comes up a 12 and you're like, okay, well, what does that mean?
It's like what's the most middle of the road thing that I could come up with?
Yeah, it's the most boring answer I could come up with. Also, D12s don't get enough love, and I
Mm-hmm.
love D12s.
Yeah, so what hooked me, and we kind of talked a little bit about this, my background is in psychology, and specifically social and cultural psychology. So when Isaac was like, hey, I'm going to run a game of Daggerheart, you're going to be joining this. And I was like, absolutely. I started looking and playing around with the character builders, and the ancestries and community features were actually the thing that made me sold on the system. Because I do think that, like, again, a person, we've talked about this before, like, a person is a complex thing, that we're not just one thing, we're like a product of every single experience we've had, every single person we've met. We're an amalgamation of them. So the fact that this game not just gave me that as part of like the mechanics, but then further in the character sheet started to like ask you questions about how this got you to where you're at,
Mhm.
helped me like really flesh out the character that I wanted to play as a more like robust figure. Which again, I'm a role play person. I don't know if you can tell that by the everything about me, but that hooked me immediately. And then Isaac was like, "Oh, we're gonna use these we're gonna use these pre-gen characters," and I was like, "Yeah."
Try to make it easy for y'all.
I already
Try to make it
created
easy.
scroll, and he was like, "Pick from these," and so I picked Marlowe. And
Okay,
yeah, that's
yeah.
what I picked.
Joe.
I'm glad you picked Marlowe because otherwise we wouldn't have had our adventure. So that was
Yeah.
cool. I like Dungeons and Dragons, but kind of like you were saying, I kind of always felt like I came in a little bit late. And you really have to spend time, I think, to really have a good understanding when you want to play things past a bard, which is normally what I would, default to in Dungeons and Dragons. And then I got, into Avatar Legends and other similar powered by the apocalypse
Mhm.
games, and I really liked the narrative focus on them. And like I think they do a lot of cool things. Like in Avatar, you have that balance piece of it back and forth, and it's just such an interesting mechanic narratively And then I just always felt like there was something missing when it came to the dice.
Hmm.
Like, and I still love playing Avatar Legends and those games, but having just like the 2d6 always felt somewhat limiting in the meaningfulness of the role in general and the kind of the
Hmm.
consequences that come from that, even if it is a similar idea. And I think really that's what sold me on Daggerheart, was that I could tell there was a lot of maybe inspiration, which they cite from that Powered by the Apocalypse when it comes to, like the character connections and questions, and
Hmm.
even kind of how those campaign frames are laid out and those pieces. But it just feels like there's just enough crunch that it doesn't overpower the story by any means, but that every choice you make still has meaningful, lasting consequences. And so it was just that perfect balance for me personally between that storytelling and crunch that just I don't know. I fell in love with it just so fast. So
Yeah, they were kind of talking about that with like the D20, how it kind of like wildly fluctuates. The D6 is a little bit more narrow in results, where the D12 has kind of like that large, like kind of like not as wild as the D20, but it does have kind of like that middle of the road. Like you get that kind of balance between them. And of course, with the what's it called? Sorry, with the critting, you get like 8.3%, I believe it is. Where with D&D, it's like 5%. So I think we've all
unless
been
you're at
able
our
to tell
table,
that there are a lot of
like
crits. That little,
unless you're at our table.
I was gonna say that extra 3% has been resulting in a lot more crits than I think I've ever dealt with.
Much to Isaac's
True,
chagrin.
Mhm.
truly feels like it.
I mean, I haven't. I wouldn't, but that's
uh,
Annie does.
Yeah, I think I saw Isaac comment somewhere of, I don't know if it was during the live actual play of Age of Umbra, but the first roll being a crit was. So I think he
Yep.
said it was like very reaffirming to you.
Very reaffirming it's not just me who's
Yeah,
getting whopped. Ugh.
Rowan, were you about to?
oh, I was gonna say, yeah. Again, referencing previous interview, my favorite thing is, I think, Isaac's least favorite thing that's ever happened in an RPG
Is it
game.
the sword?
Uh-huh.
I
Oh
can't
man,
tell y'all how much time I spent. I don't know what you heard from Rowan, but I just want to be very clear. I spent days
so,
with a box cutter and a hot glue gun making a whole ruined town. I had gems around the whole thing where it's like they get the gems, it'll stop the bad guy. I made a full ass stat. This may be the last time I made a full stat block for anything. Made a full stat block. It was like, here are the waves that are gonna happen. I had miniatures. I had paper standees. I went in my attic and got my old copy of Heroescape from 2004 and brought a whole bunch of stuff out. All just gone almost immediately. The players loved it, and I love that for them, and that makes my GM heart so happy. But every time I see a picture of the stupid fucking cardboard town I made, that did not matter at all. I could have just put graph paper on the table and said, "Here's your town for as good as it did me." Anyways, not to rant, but
no, I get it. My
Now tabletop has to put a bleep on here or mark it explicit.
oh, I guess I should have added. Well, it's the 30-second mark on YouTube, right? I guess I should have asked cursing.
the more of these
Every time.
interviews I do where it's less like me trying to write what I'm going to say, is I will cuss more often than I do when I'm like actually writing what I'm trying to say. Because it's a little bit more
Yeah.
control, but when it comes to interviews, just conversations, like, yeah, I will cuss from time to time. It's like I cuss a lot when I'm definitely not on screen, but the only reason why I haven't is because, like I said, scripting.
Yeah.
I will say, Isaac's doing that town. So you did ask if any of us have ever GM'd before. I have GM'd before as well. I GM'd a Strixhaven campaign, and
Okay.
Isaac's little
Yeah.
town that he made me want to make a 3D town for their finale. So it wasn't completely wasted, because I made a little 3D area that was based after Betrayal of House on Hill. So every door that they went through, I just like placed another thing down, and it took them until they found the magic elevator to figure out what it was, and that was pretty cool. Yeah.
We found the mystical elevator, and I was like, wait a
Right.
minute.
And
I
hold up.
thought it was weird that there were,
But yeah, so during during the talk back, you guys said that there wasn't really like a method that you guys have for setting up the game. Um, what do you do to kind of like prepare for before you play? Like, what do you guys like to do before the game session to relax before playing?
Not necessarily relax, but we started yelling at each other to drink more water in the Discord that we have back and forth. To be like, these two edit, the
Mhm.
pop sounds and all of this stuff out of the. Um, they try and make us sound like as clear as possible, and they both started complaining that we had too many popping sounds in our recordings. So they were like, "We need to drink more water and be hydrated." So I am now the hydration like drills sergeant, like drink your water, cadets. Throughout the day. That was all I wanted to say.
Our skin looks great.
Mhm.
Uh, I you actually, I think you end up hearing a lot of what we do to relax. Usually we'll sit down, we have one beer, just I think, just to kind of hang out, and we'll hit
Mhm.
record. And usually whatever we're rambling about in that will either make the very beginning of it, or like a post credits scene, or what are they called? What do we call them?
Stingers?
Yeah,
Stinger.
stinger. So they'll either, so usually you'll hear that. It's usually, I think, just the idea of getting us in a space where we're not actively thinking about the mics or the recording or anybody that's listening.
Mhm.
uh, when we decided to do this, it was just so important to me that no matter what, I guess so important to us that no matter what, we play how we would always play. And so just in that, we'll have random conversations. Sometimes we'll play a game. What is it?
Zip zap zop.
That one. I can never.
I tried one time to be like, let's do some improv games, like get us loosened up, and I got mad resistance on zip zap zop.
Okay,
so.
you got resistance from the two people that have not done improv before, so that's
tried.
fair.
Eventually, I figured that eventually I'll just introduce some Who's Line games, and that can be what we do. But
That'd be fun.
questions
Scenes-
only.
Scenes from a hat, just as Pistachio, Crankin, Kapi, like something like that.
There you go.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Everything's made up, and the points don't matter.
And Isaac, was there anything specific for you, or is just kind of like follow up with what
What do you
everyone
do
else
in
is
your
doing?
car for 30 minutes before you come in here?
I typically stare into the abyss and think of my life choices.
It does seem like that when
Uh,
we're looking out the window. Just Isaac.
When you try your best and you don't succeed.
Yeah, I listen to really sad music, and I just hold back the tears.
Into the
in
west,
real-
into the west from Lord of the Rings.
Exactly right. So as a GM, I like to clear up the space because when you're GMing, you can bring a lot of like baggage from your day into the session. And so the best thing that I have found to help with that is a walk. So whenever I get home, I have a day job. I'm only moonlighting as a professional GM. But I get back from work. It's been a stressful day. It's been a long day. I don't want to bring all of my hydraulics and hydrology modeling 2D softwares into this. I don't need to bring all the curve numbers. I don't need to bring all the stormwater master plans. So I always go for a walk. I'll take my dog for a walk. And like 9 times out of 10, even if it's like I've had such a bad day, I've been talking to clients all day, oh my gosh, I'm like so out of it. 9 times out of 10, when I get back from a walk, even if it's just like a 10-minute walk or a 5-minute walk, we're off to the races. I'm excited to play. I've had a genius idea. It's going to blow my players' mind. I can't wait. And as far as prep goes before session, a lot of times I do very light prep during the middle of a game because I'm a big prepper in the beginning where I establish as much of a foundation as I can. I have a direction that I'm going, so I think about the ending. But once we're in the middle, then it's really just, I am the wind that pushes the sail of the ship that the players are steering. And so I'm pushing it in a general direction, but they're the ones that are manning the ship and moving it. So how much control do I really have? I tell them I can't wait to play just to find out what'll happen because I have no idea. So so that's kind of how I mostly prepare. Walks are good. A big drink of water is good. And yeah.
And that's kind of why you had asked before we started recording, like if we were thinking about doing video. I don't know. Like I know that that's the big way to do it now, and I know that there's kind of a big piece of growing that's tied to the video. I think that would be tough for me to want to sign off on because sometimes I do have a problem, I think, overall, just completely disconnecting.
Hmm.
But, on my 50-minute commute, or if I do go on a walk and I can just listen and I don't have that kind of doom scrolling, or that kind of piece to it, I think I kind of like that I'm not watching something like when I do listen to the audio podcasts I do. So, um, yeah.
It's a
Honestly.
different part of your brain completely. Like as far as like disconnecting from your phone and just like listening and being outside. That's a lot of the stuff that I've had to do a lot more recently, just because it's bad for you. Surprising. But yeah, so I think yeah. And the other thing is that I will be constantly aware of what my face is doing. And I am so worried. I make a lot of goofy faces. I do a lot of things with my hands and I don't know what's going on. You'll see me tapping, you'll see me like doing all sorts of stuff. And I can't handle that pressure all the time. Not all the time. Also, we've seen Isaac miring himself in the camera. You don't want to do that.
Well, and it's like I've watched all of campaign 2 and 3 of Critical Role, and I watch a lot of that when I'm at work because when I like get home, I like to either just watch YouTube, just relax, or it's like I just hang out with my partner. And I would say out of the entirety of campaign 2 and 3, I've probably actually watched their faces probably for a collective hour over both of those campaigns because it's just put it on, set it against the computer, but I'm just like focusing on work. And I think that's where a lot of these podcasts are starting to find a lot more viewership, is because people are getting more jobs that do not require you to communicate with people at work. Or if you do need to communicate with them, you can just pause it. So not having a video also kind of like alleviates some of that pressure where it's like people feel like, oh, I need to watch how they are role playing, where it's like you just get to listen. And I think a lot of people, including myself, prefer kind of like an audio format because we are busy while we're watching it. Because it's like going to work for 8 hours and then watching like a ton of podcasts after. It's easier to do it when you're walking around or you're cleaning. So I videos are always good, but I don't think they're as necessary as like what a lot of people think they are. In Daggerheart, you guys know that there are campaign frames. Campaign frames are simply kind of like bite-sized versions of settings and adventure books used to aid the GM if they want to run a game in a pre-established world. What campaign frames do you think Kapi and Pistachio would either be the best in or the worst in? And Isaac, which one would you want to run? And if you guys think you can answer for Crank, like to hear that one too, but if not, totally understandable.
Can't wait for these two to answer.
Yeah, hold on, let me get my book.
You could do
I'll
best
go
and
first.
worst, or just best or worst, whatever one comes to mind.
Kapi, do you know what the campaign frames are?
No. So like I have the book, and
I was gonna say, didn't you buy the limited edition for everybody?
no, I bought it for Annie.
Oh, okay.
Um,
I bought this by myself.
and I bought the core for me, and truthfully, I just haven't had time to sit down and actually read it. But I did actually ask Isaac, because we're doing obviously a modified version of Five Banners Burning
Mhm.
for Dodoborne,
Mhm.
and I asked him, if I go read that, am I going to like spoil something for myself? Which you did say no. So that was kind of
Yeah.
my green light to go read it. And we recorded the first episode of season 2 right after it came out. And I'm also working on a trailer for Dodoborne in general,
Mhm.
and just between those
Big
two
announcement.
things, I have not had as much time to just read as
Do
I.
you want to look?
I was gonna
I
say,
think that's my answer. I'm not going to pretend now. Just be like, oh, I think
I haven't finished all of it,
Okay.
but Daggerheart is the most I've ever read of any type of handbook. It's like I've
Yeah.
ran 2 D&D campaigns, and I would say I probably read less than 50 pages in the Games Master Guide or the Player Handbook. I read stuff that's important or that I felt like was necessary, but yeah, reading is
Yeah.
overrated sometimes.
And I did.
Please.
Let's all forget out.
I was just gonna say I did go through like the beginning and the ancestries and the classes, and because I wanted to read through those and make sure that I had a good understanding going into the second season if there was any changes that I needed to know about.
Mhm.
Yeah, I just haven't made it to the
limited edition.
campaign frames. I'm a bad.
I actually do know Annie's answer for this because she's answered it before, and for Crank it would be Motherboard.
Okay. Yeah.
When she got the limited edition from Joe, she flipped through and was like, "Oh my god, this would be perfect for Crank," and then wrote Crank's name in the Motherboard language. I was just checking because I wanted to remember exactly what the name was, so I didn't mess it up on camera and then get roasted. Beast Feast for Pistachio.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about Beast Feast that kind of do you think is like stands out for Pistachio?
So one, it's all about like going into dungeons and making food. It's very similar to Delicious in Dungeon.
Mhm.
There's a little bit of absurd, there's a little bit of kooky, there's a little bit of creepy, there's a little cute going on. And as we know, that Pistachio is just kind of like all of that into a little bubble. And then in general, I think it just fits their aesthetic. I could see them like there's a part on Blue Sky right now that I'm doing like little questions for Pistachio, and they do actually know how to cook. They cook a lot for their family as part of like one of the only people that's not constantly on the farm and having to cook with their specific dietary restriction. So I think that would be a cool little aspect for them to like engage in as well on Beast Piece.
No.
And before you answer, I'm gonna let you answer, and then I want to ask Tabletop what he thinks Cappy's would be.
Ooh.
In case
Throwback.
in case you were gonna like be like, oh, I think Cappy's would be this. Oh, look, he's looking.
I was like, where is my book is upstairs.
I don't have to do that.
I think it's Beast Feast, Five Banners Burning, Motherboard,
And then
the
Age of
one with the
Umbrella.
giant Age of Umbra, the Colossi. That one is really cool. That's one I've been wanting to try a lot. I was to say, Isaac, did you have any of those that you specifically wanted to run aside from Five Banners Burning?
Yeah, there's two sides of your benevolent GM because there's one thing I do love is running a horror game. I can bring out into the depths of my brain some terrible things for a horror campaign. I love it so much. I tend not to, and we probably won't see it on Dodoborne just because like I don't know, a lot of you want to be careful with horror sometimes. A lot of themes in there that could, but and this is awful to say, but Age of Umbra would be one that I feel like I could really sink my teeth into. The reason I say it's awful to say is because there is currently a campaign on Age of Umbra. I will not ever touch Age of Umbra. But the idea of like a darkened world where the gods are gone, everyone's on their own, and darkness has covered the land, just is such a good breeding ground of ideas of how you can, first of all, create a desolate wasteland that is still beautiful, because it reminds me a lot of Annihilation. If anyone's seen that or read the book, they're two different things, I promise. But also how, in such a hopeless seeming environment, you can kindle a light of hope and eventually turn that into a full blaze. And that's my first one. The other side of this is that my best dream and what I am trying to accomplish as best I can eventually is to run a Legend of Zelda themed ass campaign, because I have at one point I did make a grid map based on Breath of the Wild because that was my comfort game in grad school. And so I know every inch of that map, and I was like, this would be such a good one. But those are two of the campaigns that sort of started off strong and then sort of whittled away. So, but Witherwild, which I think is the first one in there, is the one that is pretty Zelda coded, I feel like, just in sort of some ideas it brings up. So that's another one I'd love to do. Also, the Colossus one, because man, I love making players feel sad sometimes. And
Yeah.
man, if there's a game that makes you feel sad, it's Shadow of the Colossus. So
It's
that one would also be fun. The note card thing in there, the note card idea blew me away.
I like the being able, I know you can do this in other games, but I like these you want to hit specific points. I would say if I was trying to come up with something that I think Cappy would like when it comes to like combat prowess, I'm not 100% sure with Cappy, but I think kind of like the way that you were just kind of like freaking out about all the different possibilities that could be happening. I think being in a world like Age of Umbra would just be like, just reaffirm everything that Cappy believes. Like the worst is going to happen. It's like we're in this terrible world.
Yeah.
So I'll be like, yeah, of course this is happening. It's like, I know why this is happening.
Exactly.
Cappy would die in 15 minutes.
Yeah, probably.
Would die in 15 minutes.
He would.
No, he
No.
wouldn't.
He'd be like the opening stinger to show you that like
Ooh.
we're not messing around.
That's right. I kill Cappy off immediately.
Yeah, he'd have like 5 funny jokes in like the opening scene and then just get stomped. Like
You're the funny one in Seven Samurai. You go first.
right,
That's
exactly.
right. That was a film. That was a film joke for all those film people out there. That's right. Those Kurosawa heads.
Was there
Whoa.
any of the campaign frames that you guys think would be the worst for your characters?
Motherboard. They'd have to think too much. They wouldn't be able to do it. Absolutely.
They were dumb.
Oh, that actually hurt worse.
Robotics.
Annie would thrive in that.
Yeah, Annie would do fine in
Annie is a
Motherboard.
mid-mix.
I honestly wouldn't make it in Motherboard. I can just tell.
Just make sure to any type of flying car would just be in danger
Yeah,
from Annie.
Yeah.
right. Nobody wants me to drive a car.
Uh, all right. Next one I have up is in TTRPGs, you play a variety of characters, some that are kind of like you, some that are completely opposite from you. Do you have a character that is almost the complete opposite of you as a person? And what did you do to get in that headspace to play that type of character?
Which one are you thinking of for me?
I don't know. Which one are you thinking? No, you go.
No, I want to hear.
No, go ahead.
Isaac's been my GM for so long.
Yeah.
So we had talked about my favorite character on the last interview.
Mhm.
The character I played was after that one was a direct response, and I wanted to play somebody that didn't have any charisma and thought things through a lot more and said no a lot. And so I ended up with a really cool orc artificer who was modeled after my one friend in college who said, who taught me how to say no the first time and yelled at me to make boundaries. So that I just remembered in my head every time that I was about to do something stupid that like, okay, what would my friend Maria think? And that was, and now she listens to our podcast. Shout out.
Shout out.
So if like, that was how I got in the head of that is like, who is the back in my head of the actual person that will make me think through the decisions I'm about to make so I don't mess up. And that was her character. Yep. Was that the one you were thinking of?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Mhm.
No, it wasn't.
What was the one? What was that turtle you played recently?
Oh, what's that turtle?
I don't remember. I could just hear the voice in my brain. And
Oh.
Do the voice.
do the voice.
Do the roar.
After, no,
Oh, it
was a
wasn't.
turtle.
It's
No, was it?
what? Duty and Happy Bubbles?
Wait, maybe it was. I don't remember. I don't remember.
Sorry, what?
Bubbles.
You're breaking up a little bit.
See?
No, stop. You're just getting them to say it more. You're just getting them to say it. Oh, what it is, it just shoots me to like South Park. I don't know what it is. The voice kills me.
I'm working the shit business, and he hates it. And I played it. I actually played that on a community game on Talking Crit actually this week, with some of our fans, Smash My Foot, Josh M, and Thoth. and they got to hear that duty and their shitometer.
Are they still going to be our fans?
They
Good question.
They
They,
still like
They're
it.
still going to like us?
they
Yeah.
probably loved it. They probably fell in love.
They did. And poor Emma had to deal with it. But at least you didn't. So
Emma, I understand. I get it.
to be fair, I didn't talk that much. I let them do it, but I did have my little shit mobile home and I was in the shit business and had a shitometer.
Anyway, Joe, what's your character?
My most opposite?
Yeah. All the characters you played.
To be really honest, it's probably... So we finished season 1 in March, like the beginning of March. And then right at that time, they had released some new updates for the game. So we thought we could record some, just like a one shot with like the new updates that we had. And we did. And I played a Inferni named Kinsey, who was very much in a cult to the god Splendor. And was constantly trying to like get people to join that cult. He's kind of a strange guy, but so I felt like that was pretty opposite of me. And I guess to get in that headspace, I remember it's an interesting question and something I've had to kind of discipline myself of, because like my knee-jerk reaction is to like look for the joke or look for the bit. And if I play a character that wouldn't do that, it's like hard to restrain that part of yourself. And so it's definitely a lesson in discipline. And that's really what I learned in that one shot playing that character was it can be very fun and rewarding, but you really have to kind of enact that discipline to not just default to some version of yourself, like you're saying.
Yeah, it's like with me, I'm a naturally sarcastic person. Just live. So when I was playing a type of, what were they? All I know is Clank now. I don't remember what they're called in D&D, but playing a Clank, Warforged, yeah, where I was just like a warlock, and I was just like a very serious person. And every single time that like somebody would say something, I would like think in my head like, okay, don't be sarcastic. Don't be sarcastic. You're a Warforged. Focus on being as literal as possible.
Exactly.
What about you, Isaac? Oh, sorry.
Okay, good.
Oh no, Joe.
Well, as I could probably count on one hand the amount of characters I've actually played. And so, not truly, I discovered pretty quickly that I play the same character every time I play. Since the very first time I played a character, which is just I play a bit of a lovable asshole, which sometimes that might be a little too close to home. So there was one game I played where I was like, I'm gonna play a very stoic orc monk, because even though so I did martial arts when I was in high school. That was the thing. That was my part-time job. I was a teacher. I don't have any of those skills anymore. 16-year-old Isaac could absolutely wipe the floor with me and kick my ass. But I still remember it. It was fun. It was a great time. So I was like, I'll dial up like the martial arts of it, and I'll just be a very stoic orc who that was tough, because I was just like, I'm not gonna talk. I'm just not gonna say anything. If I'm gonna talk, if anyone asked me anything or talked to me, I counted to 3 in my head and then responded. And if there was ever like a lull in the conversation, I would count to 2 before I spoke, because I'm also very quick to just like, if there's a joke, I gotta get it in there. I can't help myself. But kind of that really helped, was just sort of being active in the moment of just someone says something and I just in my head I'm 1, 2, 3, and then I'll say something. The least funny thing I could think of. And sometimes I would still throw in a joke in a very deadpan way, but it was still the counting that I had made myself do so that I could keep this idea of being like, I'm stoic.
I was jamming that one and you could see him counting on his face. It was like,
I was gonna say just a little like boom, 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 boom.
Oh, yeah.
My temples.
I really like the counting advice, first off. I just think it's interesting that you have that issue, because you play 50,000 characters in every session, and
Yeah.
I don't know, you always seem pretty locked into them as a whole. I mean, and they always
Yeah.
feel different. So I don't know. That is
Yeah.
interesting.
An NPC is really easy for me to fall into because I just have like 1 or 2 facts about them, and then I just like take that to 11. And that's the good thing about GMing is I get to talk a lot, and that's what I love doing. So I get to talk more than everyone else as a GM, which is not good GM advice. Don't do that.
What show or like what show from your childhood do you wish that would be do you think would be beneficial to be made today? Like it didn't come out until just now that you think kind of the younger generations would benefit a lot from watching. Because as Rowan and I were talking about earlier, I've never watched Steven Universe, but they were saying like how positive Steven Universe is. So we still got those great shows that help a lot of people learn empathy and experience like diversity in the world. But what show from your childhood do you think would be really well served to be released today?
I've gone first a lot. Someone else has to go.
It's the Last Airbender. That's what I want. It's still good. You can still watch it and you can still learn things.
Yeah, you can still watch the movie.
Well,
Yeah. The three, so books 1, 2, and 3. The animated.
What about Korra?
Korra's good too. No, Korra's good too. If you're like as a kid, I think you could learn a lot of core things like Tabletop is saying from The Last Airbender.
okay, so I also was thinking The Last
Don't
Airbender.
take my thing.
But I was thinking, as far as like shows that I think would have benefited from coming out nowadays, Korra was mine that would have benefited from coming out nowadays because, small known fact, maybe larger known fact, the hand holding of Korra and Masami at the end of the Nick show at the end of The Legend of Korra was one of the first LGBT representations in media. And if they had gotten the ability that they could, well, maybe not now, but like a couple years ago, then they could have played that aspect up a little bit more, and I think fleshed out Korra's character in a better way. So my answer was going to be The Legend of Korra, which isn't quite your answer, Joe.
It's not my answer, no.
Okay. But not
Avatar is
because I
correct.
think
They're both. It's like, yeah, I really got into the first Avatar, of course, and then Legend of Korra. I showed my partner it. She was completely against watching Avatar because she didn't watch a lot of like animated like shows, and then she was like, "That was great." Then she wanted to watch Korra immediately after. So I was like, "Yeah, like they're both very good series for their own way." And one thing I read a while ago was the fun thing about Avatar and The Legend of Korra, like Avatar: The Legend of Korra, then Avatar: The Last Airbender, is those were if you swap those two around, they probably would have only lasted one season. Korra probably would have went right for the Fire Lord, and Aang probably would have found a balance to make everyone like each other. But it was like they were not born for the time that that they would have been more beneficial, which I thought was just a really cool concept.
Yes. Listen, we could talk all
right,
day.
Joe,
I was just gonna say we could talk all day about Airbender, but I just also all I was gonna say was that Kyoshi's actually my favorite Avatar from the book. So if you haven't read them, they're excellent in general. No, I'm just a big fan of the universe. So
And what about you, Isaac?
That's a great question. HomestarRunner.com was a big part of my childhood, and that was a weekly show. And I think most of my humor comes from that. So I'd love for that to come back. It wasn't really a TV show; it was done in like Flash, but that was middle school.
I've never heard of this.
I also don't know what it is.
Okay.
I know the guy now. I
HomestarRunner.com
don't
was
know the show, but I know the guy.
It was like the original serialized online content. In fact, a person I'm not related to, Bernie Burns, who started Rooster Teeth, who did Red versus Blue, which was one of the big machinimas back in the day. They have quoted Homestar Runner and their serialized content that you can get online. Every Monday you come back, there's some new content. They actually cited that as a big part of their reasonings for how they started their show. So I'm just saying, big history. And then as like an actual show, a show I would love to see come back is Samurai Jack, because that was a solid show. I watched a couple of the episodes like more recently, and I was like, wow, that's very metaphysical for me to watch when I was in like elementary school or something. Since I was probably like 3 when it came out back in like 2002. So like But yeah, and that show was real. I still remember a lot of those episodes, and I'll think back on them sometimes, just because the concepts of them were really good, and especially as a GM, and thinking of ways to approach combat situations in a way that don't necessarily need to be just an all-out brawl.
Mhm.
There's a lot of really cool ideas that are in there, so highly recommend.
I hadn't. I completely. I'm one of those people that need to write down shows that exist or movies that exist because I will forget them within a day or two. Um, but how did you feel about the remake? I'm pretty sure they had a remake for Samurai Jack.
I thought that as someone who hadn't watched Samurai Jack in years and then watched this one, I could feel some of the modernization of it. And
Mhm.
I could also tell how me reading comments online diminished my enjoyment of it. And so it's actually the most recent episodes. I feel like I watched them more recently and liked them a lot more. Um, but I just remember that was the show that actually got me to stop looking up episodes on Reddit. It's
Yeah.
because I was like, it finally convinced me that's like, man, this is a lot of negativity. But I personally liked. I thought it was a great way to like cap it off in a way that wasn't just
Mhm.
like Samurai Jack kills Aku, because the show was. It was not really a serialized show, right? It's sort of an anthology of his journey. So the only through point of it has been him trying to get to the past. So
Mhm.
when you bring in these new shows, you have to give him some kind of personal stake, and they did that in what I felt like was a neat way. So it also they ended it sad, and I love things that end sad. Ask me about Claire Obscure Expedition 33, but it's yeah, I liked it.
Uh, for your characters, where did the inspiration comes for like Pistachio, for Kapi, and for Brackenroad, Isaac? Where did the inspiration for Brackenroad come in?
You two start. You start, Ron.
Nah, Joe gets to start.
You want me to start?
Well,
Okay.
yeah.
Cappy Cappy was kind of the idea of, at the time, one of my favorite comments on the podcast was someone commented, Cappy, I'm a trainer in my role, so I completely relate to you trying to train the recruits. And it was oddly specific because at the time I was a trainer in my job. And so, I know that there's always some debate on how much of your personal life you bring in, but I had brought a little bit of personal life in, and the fact that I had always wanted to be a trainer, and I finally achieved that. And I liked my job, but I had gotten to a point where I was doing that for going on a little over 4 years, and I knew that there had to be that next step,
Mhm.
but I wasn't sure what it is. And so Cappy was a bit of an exaggeration of the manifestation of someone that's just kind of been in a job for too long and going through the motions. And so that, I think, was the main inspiration for Cappy. And also, Isaac had a no humans rule.
No humans.
All right, well,
That's so. I mean, but I was happy because I'm so stoked I picked the Furbolg now. So,
Yeah.
I think that was a good call when we did that. So that was Cappy's inspiration.
Is there any and I don't want to get into like massive, like annoying conspiracies, but with a Cappy being kind of more of a conspiratorial person, do you
Sure.
have any? Was that kind of like something that there's like some fun conspiracies that you were like putting into that?
I would actually say I might be like a pretty big buzzkill overall.
Mhm.
Okay, was it that? I just like I remember like I was super into conspiracy theories when I was younger, and I remember having a history teacher, and I got into like this big debate with him in like eighth or ninth grade, and I was like going through all of it. And I'm like, but yeah, but what about and this and this? And he kind of hit me with like, it's fun to think about conspiracy theories because there's kind of like those stories that we create around it, and not to discredit any that are out there, but it definitely kind of put me on a mindset where
Mhm.
I just whenever I experience a conspiracy theory, like it's hard for me to really get on board or um I guess the reverse of that's true too, is when they're like, this is, well, yeah, I mean, there's obvious evidence. I need hard evidence, I guess is what I'm
Yeah.
saying. And so like that's kind of what, ever since my history teacher had that, I've definitely leaned more towards evidence. Cappy's conspiracy is mainly just me trying to figure out whatever the hell Isaac's trying to like do, because I know that like, like obviously like the Dodoborne and the other things, he's very clearly planting seeds.
Hmm.
And he clearly knows that there's overarching, conspiracy there. And it was really just Joe trying to figure it out. And every time Joe rolls and fails the roll, Cappy has to come up with something equally more ridiculous.
Mhm.
So I think that's where my conspiracies for that came.
Okay.
I love that.
Yeah, my it was just that with the moment with like when you revealed like the whole Dodoborne thing, the way that the music was going and the way you started just like shouting above the music, it was just so masterfully edited. It was just so much fun just to like listen to. Is like I know everyone uses the meme of like the Charlie, the Pepe Sylvia thing, but it's like I could just imagine like you just being like, no, cut the music. I'm still talking here. And it was just
Yeah.
making me laugh so much.
When Isaac said, cue the music, like we had it loaded up because we like actually listened to the theme song every time. So like I just like hit the button because we, had the music only one on there too. So
Mhm.
like I just hit it and he just ranted. I remember driving, because again, I have a 50-minute commute. I remember driving home in silence after that. Like I didn't listen to a single thing. Like I just it was like a nice, like there was nice air. I had the window halfway down. I just drove. I missed my exit. I just couldn't wrap my head around.
All right. What about you, Rowan?
So I think I talked about in the talk back that I had like 3 different inspirations, for Pistachio, but I'll kind of get into it a little bit more because Pistachio is a complex individual as is everything that I touch. I feel like. So the 2 things that I didn't mention in that was I also work with a lot of interns and entry levels in my
Mhm.
job, and they're all very, very like try hardy, like almost really cute in the way that it's like their first job. Nothing has quite hit them yet. They haven't like gotten bogged down by the like by the capitalism like yet. And is like really perky. And I wanted to like bring that through in this character, especially knowing that it was going to be our first like you know adventure, so that was part of it. And then also as far as like the voice and pieces that came from, is I wanted them to be like a little bit, they have allergies, so I wanted to give them a nasally voice.
Mhm.
And then surprisingly enough, I was on the phone with my mother and I realized that Pistachio and my mother have a very similar cadence, because they both talk in big words and also say things that are not like they don't know what they're saying until it's out of their mouth. So I realized, hey mom, if you're watching this, my character is a loving impression of you.
Rowan's mom, I would never say that about you.
She loves Isaac's voice specifically.
Thanks, Mom. This goes out to you. Thank you so much for watching the podcast. It just means a lot to us to know we have that support.
Yeah.
Some Isaac ASMR.
Some Isaac ASMR for you. Rowan's mom.
I worked at a restaurant in college to like help pay the bills, and I was on drive-through for a lot of it. And I just distinctly remember one of my coworkers walked up and was like, "I just love listening to when you talk to customers." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "It's always like you're trying to seduce them almost. It's just you put on such a breathy voice." I did not know what to do with that information, and then felt incredibly self-conscious.
I was
But
gonna
that was
say,
fun. That was
I think that was kind of
fun.
like the same thing that happened with the turnip. Was you weren't intentionally doing that, but oh my god, that moment I had to pause because it was like it's not often I have to pause a video when I'm at work and have to like take a walk around. Like I would say one of the other like besides the turnip, like the other moments I had to is like this freshman year of Fantasy High with
Yeah.
Dimension 20 is I literally when you were doing the whole like turnip thing, I had to like pause the video, take out my headphones, walk around for a little bit, then come back. So it's just like it was just the way that like the breathiness of your voice was just
Take a
so
laugh.
funny. It was just, and like the way you're saying, like you didn't mean for it to become the way it is, but then it just started
Oh,
happening. It's like the best jokes come out of just randomness.
it's true. Listen, if you offer me something, I'm gonna take it and I'm gonna run with it way too far. Like, yes. I was actually trying to think of a good answer for it, but I have to be honest, is that names are hard for me. I tend to think way too much about names because I'm
Hmm.
like, I want the names to have a theme. Like, that's what's hard about maps is it's like, what should these things be called? I know. Let me look up some really esoteric thing and like come up with all my names on that. And so for this one, I was like, I don't want to think too hard about this. I'm just going to come up with the very first thing I can think of. And so at Bracken Road came up. Is it brackish water? No, it's not really near the ocean. Is it even a road? Not really. But Bracken Road just felt good. And I don't quite remember where apples came from. I have a I have a feeling it was like
No, it was because you had apple fritters as your favorite.
No, but I only did
No,
apple
that's
fritters because of the.
I think the apples. I honestly think the Bracken Road apples thing came from probably when we were riffing at first because I was like, it needs to be a small town. Okay,
Hmm.
gotta start small. Start your game small, right? We don't need the big stakes. Just start them small in a little small town. All small town people, right? And I was like, this small town, like, oh, it's farmers and like apples. And I think that's kind of how it went. Was we were just riffing back and forth. And I was like, yeah, sure, apples. Why not? There are apple orchards. Maybe in that viral TikTok sound that was like, where are we going? The apple orchard? Maybe that was in my head. I don't know. But truly, Bracken Road and everything with the apples came about, I think, from just riffing and trying to come up with a name that was quick and easy and I didn't need to think too hard about. So, but yeah, a small town. I love small towns. Every one shot I do is in the same small town. So I knew I couldn't name it the same small town I always did, because then if I ever used it elsewhere, that would feel, I don't know.
Okay.
So,
I know you live
but yeah,
in. I know you guys live in North Carolina. Were you like part of from a small town in North Carolina, or is kind of like always kind of used to the larger cities? Well, I guess mid-sized cities because Omaha is like a city of 500,000 people, so it's not like a major city. But
I actually grew up in Fayetteville, North Carolina.
oh, okay.
So, yep. So that's if you know anything about Fayetteville, which is right next to Fort Bragg / Liberty / Bragg again. Not really a small town, but it kind of has a small town vibe. I grew up outside of it in a
Hmm.
place called Deadman, right? Which you won't find on a
Sounds
map.
really
You'd have
cool.
it's like on the other side of the tracks, as they would say, because it was so very small town, very boondocksy, right?
Hmm.
So
I grew up
Okay.
in a. I grew up in a small town in Ohio, so yeah, I was. Small town feels very normal to me.
Yeah, I grew up in a small. They actually call it a village of Clemens,
ooh,
which is outside of Winston-Salem, and
Fancy.
then moved to Asheville for college,
very
which
British.
was a bigger town.
Hmm.
And then I moved here.
What books, movies, shows, video games, any of those kind of got you more into fantasy?
When I was a tender young child, I started reading the Redwall
Hmm.
series, which a lot of people might not know as much anymore. But I want you to imagine cute little critters in Game of Thrones with as much violence as you could imagine, less incest, a lot more descriptions of food and feast. That's what I started reading because it was
Hmm.
all basically small people going on big adventures. And while that wasn't really the traditionally Tolkien-esque coded fantasy, I would say that still has very much coded my storytelling sensibilities. Um, Also, Warrior Cats got me into fantasy, I would say, as well. So I was an avid Warrior Cats reader when I was younger,
You can't tell
as
that.
well. You can't, no, not at all.
I've never even heard of it.
Yeah.
That's okay. I
I don't
lost
think
a
I
friend
have heard of
doing
that.
Warrior Cats. So,
That's fantastic.
but yeah, I would say that's what really got me into the more fantastical settings.
Hmm.
Again, not as much. Yeah. Anyways,
Oh, me next?
yeah, you know.
I'm a human of a specific age. Do you want to guess what got me into like
Say it.
Say
Do
it.
it.
So, a certain canceled author with a certain 7-part book series was my go-to, and when that particularly came out, I had gotten all the books. I went to the releases of the 5th, 6th, and 7th book dressed up as a certain character from said books, and it really hurts my heart that that person sucks.
Mhm.
But that's what got me into it. And then I got into, from there, I got into The Lightning Thief and Percy Jackson. Was really quick after that. I read The Guardians of Ga'Hoole. But I'm a really fast reader in general. It's something that I've actually reconnected to in my 30s that I haven't had since I was young. And I tore through that, 700-page book in a night.
Also, Chrono Trigger. That's the game I played when I was younger.
I did think of a video game that got me into it. So are you familiar with Jack and Daxter?
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes. Jack and Daxter, Jack 2,
Isn't there
Jack
more
3.
2000 series?
Yeah, I know, right? Jack 2 was the first game that I completely finished.
They cursed in that game.
They did.
They
That did something to me.
I was gonna say I played a lot of. I didn't play Jack and Daxter element, but Sly Cooper around the same time frame.
Like,
Played that quite a
Crash
bit.
Bandicoot was my
But no, I heard
first-
Jack and Daxter was pretty good.
Crash Bandicoot was my first real love of a video game.
Really?
Mhm.
Yes. That game rewired me.
Also Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah, definitely Kingdom Hearts. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, that game, I think the intro changed me.
Yeah.
I had to like just completely shut off the PlayStation 2 and restart it so that I could watch the intro again, because that was a little bit before you could just go watch it over and over again on
Mhm.
YouTube. So that was crazy.
Oh, another good one I thought of is Fire Emblem, the Radiant series.
Oh, okay.
Which, if you want a game that was perhaps almost prophetically ahead of its time in some of the themes that it talked about, Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn, absolutely. That was a good intro to like fantasy anime shit. I
Mhm.
would say that was probably the most anime adjacent thing that I had experienced when I was younger. So
If we're talking anime now.
yeah, now we're talking anime.
Now we're talking about anime.
We're talking about anime.
Yu Yu Hakusho was something that I watched a lot, which also, again,
Tabletop's gonna edit all of this.
yeah, he's gonna.
Oh my
he's
Not
gonna-
a single sentence in
Not
this.
a single
My
sentence.
mom didn't let me watch Yu Yu Hakusho because it had demons.
Well, that sucks for
Hmm.
you, but yeah.
I watched
Yu Yu Hakusho was a great show. Me and my sister used to watch it together with Dragon Ball Z. Dragon Ball
Spirit
Z.
Bomb, yeah.
Spirit
Spirit
Bomb.
Bomb.
Yep.
Joe, I don't think I ever got your answer.
Yeah, Joe.
How'd you get into fantasy, Joe?
Oh, fantasy?
Yeah.
I think I'm probably the most. I don't have any kind of answers like.
Sorry.
Well, no, I mean
Love to
Avatar
watch.
was there, but I mean it was probably the standards, the one you
Lord of the
mentioned.
Rings.
It was Lord of the
Mhm.
Rings, like the movies. It was that when I was a kid, I really liked Lion, Witch, and Wardrobe.
Mhm.
I found a book series that I've never had anybody else like that I know also have read. It was called Pendragon.
Oh, I've heard
No,
of it.
you
Yeah.
know.
No, I think. Yeah.
I
is that
love-
how
Y'all
we-
talked about this before.
Huh?
Yeah, we've talked about this
A
before.
what?
Pendragon.
No, not the. Now I'm worried I missed a thing.
Uh-oh.
Ah, we're gonna see.
Uh-oh.
We're gonna
Hang
look.
on, I'm sorry. This is
You
the
know, while
worst
they're looking
interview
up, I'll give a
material.
hot take about fantasy. I hate elves so much. Can I talk about how much I hate elves? The amount of restraint I have on this podcast, not just constantly dunking on elves.
Yeah, no,
Yes, yes.
Pendragon. I was right. Not the one. Not you're thinking of Aragon.
Uh,
Pendragon is-
Aragon.
Yeah,
With the just sad looking dragon on Aragon.
yeah, but Pendragon was an excellent book series that I really liked.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't know. I think just my answers are pretty boring
No,
overall.
they're not boring. They're special.
I don't know.
They're special and
That's fine.
unique to
No,
you.
they don't.
man. No, it's just, you can like what you like.
Well, it's
Yeah,
like-
I was way more into like superheroes when I was
Mhm.
like I was like Spider-Man was my favorite thing ever. I was really into like a lot of Marvel.
Big kick-ass fan.
Really I was really into Marvel, Spider-Man, and those kind of movies, and the Lord of the Rings, and I think that's it. I'm probably missing stuff, but yeah, I think of your run-of-the-mill fantasy for most people. That's what got me into it.
This next one is And of course, no spoilers because I don't want to hear anything about season 2.
Rowan has to leave.
You just asked me the question.
Nobody hates spoilers more than I do.
Nobody
I
loves
promise.
spoilers more than me.
I just read it on Wikipedia.
After looking at the final version of Daggerheart, are there any significant changes that you are considering before you start? And I know you guys have already said you started the next campaign, but has there been any significant changes that you've had to make, or has a lot of this fall in line with what you were already working with? Also
We've changed
asking
a lot.
as someone who doesn't know the amount of differences there are between the beta and the final version, I didn't pay attention that heavily.
Yeah. Really, the main thing that is changed from a GM's perspective is the no more action tracker.
Mhm.
'Cause the action tracker was sort of, I think, the game's initial way of balancing the combat, where action economy is more even. Because, like, a lot of times in other games with combat, they say action economy is king, right? If you want to make it harder, give the enemies more actions. But from the way that it was explained, from what I was reading about some of the changes they were doing, they wanted to make sure that combat felt more in line with the rest of the game,
Mhm.
where really the only difference in the decisions you're really making as a GM is when they roll fear, a GM action now that you have is that, oh, the enemy can just attack them. And that kind of adds to it, but you're still thinking in terms of, okay, a success with fear, yes, but how does that go? Instead of just thinking it in, okay, they've done 3 actions and now you attack 3 times. So that sort of shift in mentality, I think, is the biggest thing on the GM's perspective,
Mhm.
which for the most part is how I kind of did combat anyway. So that doesn't really impact, I think, the way it will sound or will play from the podcast perspective. But if you've GM'd a couple times with the original beta rules and the action tracker, it may seem a little bit off because you might be thinking, oh, okay, well, now the economy around fear is different. But once you start thinking it in terms of this is still just the same game, combat
Mhm.
is a separate style of play, it makes a lot more sense and falls more in line, I think. So that's from GM talk.
I can do this without spoilers, and you can yeet me off screen if I do spoilers. When the game finally came out, Demiplane locked your old beta characters, so we all had to remake our character sheets in Demiplane
Mhm.
with the updated rules. There are some changes that were made for different people, and some people kept them the same. And we talk about that, I think, at the beginning of season 2, right?
Okay.
Possible.
Possibly.
Maybe.
We'll see.
We'll see.
We'll see.
See?
But that was my no spoilers. Did I do a good job, Joe?
You did a great job.
I think, yeah.
I'll just bleep
Why is
out
it
everything
Joe?
you said.
You guys act like I'm like.
Joe is our common sense.
Typically, we go through 3 rounds of comments with my edits. Actually, I send them to Joe, and then Joe will send back notes. And then we have a spreadsheet of comments that I get with timestamps.
No,
Those get really long, actually, because Joe is very particular.
No,
Joe might be a little bit particular. That part might be true, but I don't. Anyways,
Joe has a directorial background.
That's exactly right.
And knows how to give us feedback that actually is helpful. So
Mhm.
that's why we were like, Joe, is this good? Because we actually, I think we talked about it on our call.
Mhm.
He's
Yeah.
he's a really good person to help us create. So it's not you're keeping us in line. It's more of a like,
thank you.
it's like more of a like you're like helping us be creatively good. I don't know. Creatively in line. I don't know. There's a way. I said it better. I should say.
We can
That's right.
click the link.
Yeah.
Click on the
Down
link to see
below.
Rowan's better answer.
I was to say, I don't think there will be a more appropriate after video recommendation video than this one.
Right. Before you might have to cut in.
Mhm.
Like we only talk about those other one about 50 times.
I'm just gonna combine the 2 videos.
I didn't have to change a ton. I know something happened to Kapi's sneak attack. It was like a slight modification, but that was it. The only thing that's different for Kapi's character as far as mechanics go is that in all of season 1, I never bring up what his subclass is. So that's something I'm excited for people to see in season 2.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah.
And this one is let me just make sure. I want to make sure I got all of these. We're just gonna start from the beginning. Different answers.
No,
Right at the
No,
top.
this is the final one. This one is kind of one that I do like a lot of these most of these questions are going to be tailor made to the people that I'm talking to, but there's always like the first and the last one that I always kind of want to make sure that people get their input in, because it's something that I feel like a lot of different people could have a lot of different input in as to what they think. Um One of the things I really do enjoy the most about the tabletop RPG community is there is a lot of amazing and kind people in the community. Like, I mean, we met just by talking online, and now we're doing an interview. So it's like you meet people that you kind of just talk to people that you when you talk to people, you kind of like grow that, like, even if it's an online connection, you're kind of growing that connection between responding to replies or just talking through messages. But there are also some very vocal people in the community that get really upset about the most inconsequential things in the world about tabletop RPGs. Um, what recommendations do you have? What recommendations do you have to add more positivity to the community and to not only attract more people, but to make the community better as a whole?
why are you looking at me? Uh,
I No, you go.
Do either of you have a good answer?
do you have a good answer?
I think I have a good answer, but you go ahead.
No,
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 you're loaded. Let's
no.
go.
No, you're.
Not it.
I think there's a lot of people that are attracted to our community that are more of the nerdy stature, right?
Mhm.
And they might be a little bit more shy. And some of us who have been extroverts for our entire life um, might dominate the conversations. So I think people that are more like open and out in the conversations and in the gameplay and stuff like that. One of the things that I've learned that we can do is just like pass it back off to the shire people and spotlight them. And I
Mhm.
think Daggerheart has a lot of the spotlight mechanics that like allow you to kind of let every single person shine. Um, so bringing people like say people that are like I can't do that, like I'm not able to jump into this. It's gonna be hard. I've never done that before. Just as simple as being like, no, but like we all started somewhere. Like we can help
Mhm.
you. Like just jump in. And I think you can see that a lot in like the way that we respond to stuff on Blue Sky, or if you've interacted with us on Discord or anything like that. That's something that we like. At least I try to do, and I know like Joe and Isaac also try to do, is just like highlight more people that are doing cool things so that they get a chance to sign as well. So that's my answer. You'll probably say it way better.
No,
Yeah.
that was great.
Yeah.
No, I think it's interesting because I think we've been talking about it a lot throughout this interview. It just took me so long to figure out that if I love something, I have to protect it in any way I can and not let the negative voices or like the loud pieces of that affect that.
Mhm.
Like there's just like other things I used to love, and whether it was like Reddit or another, whatever, I would see something that like I wouldn't agree with or would make me angry, and I'd rant about it for an entire dinner meal to my wife, and she would sit there and listen because she loves me. But it eventually it would. I realized that it like kind of like we were talking about with Samurai Jack in the new episodes, that at a certain point that becomes almost a reflection of what you either enjoy or not about it. So I think
Mhm.
my advice would be, no matter what it is or your medium, really decide or think about why you love a thing. Um, or if you have valid criticisms, why you have those, and then just make sure you protect that no matter what you're seeing or interacting with on the internet. And even like, we've made some jokes about Zack Snyder and,
Yeah.
other things. I truly do believe that everybody should just enjoy what they want to enjoy as long as it's not hurting anyone else. And, I think if we all kind of like navigate the different parts of communities and really just look for that acknowledgement of, I might have a thought or a criticism, but I want everybody to enjoy what they enjoy. I think that's a good way to do it, and that's kind of something that's really just been blown me away. Like you said, like meeting you and meeting a lot of people that like our show and other people in the space. Is just that it seems like compared to a lot of other ones that there is quite a bit of positivity that seems to shine
Mhm.
through, at least that I see. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's like if we can bring and the positivity into this to the sector that we're in, it just, instead of bringing any sort of negativity, like we don't we don't want to bring that light into. There's so many other places that can do that. We just want to help, like, build other people up,
Mhm.
because ultimately more people liking the same thing that we like is a net positive, and you get more ideas out of it. You get to hear more, like, cool things that you never thought of, and we all get to create more together. It's like we were talking before, like art spawns more art,
Mhm.
and people spawn more creative things, and the more time that they're spending, like, doing positivity in the world, the more we can bear all of the negativity that we can't control, right? So yeah.
Well, and it's also like there's a I'm not trying to look at this as a capitalist way, but the more people that are into something, the more money that thing is revenue is generating, which therefore allows more things to be created in that area. So it's like, yeah, it's like if you bring in more people are going to enjoy it, more people spend money on it. Therefore, the companies that make like either the game itself or supplementary things can have more money to give to them to hire artists, to hire more storytellers so we can get more of the thing. And that's what I like. It's just more of the thing. And Isaac.
Yeah, so I see how both of them are reacting. They're both scared of what I'm going to say.
No, we just
No, but
I was just waiting for you to make a joke. I thought you were gonna like.
no. See, something I always try to remind myself is that anger is algorithmically beneficial. So, like,
Mhm.
anger spreads really quickly on the internet. If you can make someone angry or mad or give them um, a negative feeling, that's going to percolate through these dystopian algorithms that social media is run by. So, a lot of times, seeing negative posts, it sometimes helps to take a step back and just remind ourselves what we're reading. But like they said, really a long term, like a net positive mindset really is just being nice to people and
Mhm.
just being excited for what they make. Because me personally, one big reason I love the internet is because people put insane things on there that I never would have seen if I was born any other time. And I unironically love it so much because I am alive in a time that I could see it. Like there was like a YouTube video of a guy who would just like video random things, and he would say like cactus on the side of the road, and then he'd get in frame and say not too shabby. And that was all his videos, and I loved it so much because like this guy's making this video, and I don't know, there's something so beautifully human about it. And like that goes to so much of really like what makes the internet great is just this big morass of human experience that they're putting in. And when you view these things as these beautiful motes of humanity, just the world becomes so much brighter.
Yeah.
Uh,
Mhm.
and it's real. And I think that there is a layer of ironic detachment and walled off invulnerability that we sort of have as just individuals. I think that's a very human thing, especially with the sort of isolation that everything is, and the meanness culture of like the 2000s, where it was cringe to be serious about anything. And so I feel like once there's like a lot of that has to get broken out of, where you can't like a thing, but I don't know, just like when you approach anything, just have a positive mindset. Just look to build people up, like they were saying.
Mhm.
Anything anyone makes is beautiful and amazing and incredible, and I'm gonna love it. Uh, I love that is a thing that I say all the time because the person who made it probably has so much more self doubt than I'll ever understand. I don't need to add to it. So
Yeah.
just be positive, you know. And
Yeah.
like they were saying, yeah.
Yeah. I last thing I'll say about this, because I was thinking about this as well, is one of my big internet heroes are Hank and John Green of the Vlog Brothers. I've been a nerd fighter for
Mhm.
who knows how long. And one of their things is like, don't forget to be awesome. That radical kindness is what we really, I think, really need at this time. So.
Yeah, agree. Yeah, and Hank and John, watching John now more for entertainment because I'm, like I've said before, I'm pursuing a history degree.
Mhm.
But it's like the little bit of chemistry that I passed was like thanks to Hank. But
Nice.
yeah, but then I hate chemistry. Such a terrible science.
And I need more people to be really nice in the space so that in like a
Mhm.
year or so, do my heel turn
Oh my
to
God.
like a real like rage poster. I'm gonna just be everywhere. People are gonna eat it up. I'm gonna get so many views. So
Well,
everyone needs to be nice so I can enter into that like villain space. Okay.
but no, that is the final question. Is there any way that you guys want to end this out for you? I'm going to pretty much.
I want to ask you a question.
Oh,
Tim.
God.
Yeah, what's
They were-
So I actually had two questions, and my first one was going to be how you got the name Tabletop Optimist, but you did answer that.
Future sight right there.
there's a
My
lot
que-
about the there's. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
There's a lot about the future in the real world that I'm not the most optimistic about. That I'm like hopeful for, like hopeful optimism. But the OGL shocked a lot of people, and it made a lot of people give up on D&D. I worry that not enough people switched over to any other book, any other type of game. But when I was like talking to my friend about the OGL, and I was like, I don't know if I want to play D&D anymore because of this going on. I was like looking around for other TTRPGs, and I was like, there's literally hundreds. It's one game may fail you and may upset you, which I was fully expecting Daggerheart. I was like, please don't suck. Please don't suck.
Please don't suck.
Please don't.
But I was just like, yeah, one book may fail what you want, but there's so many other great books out there. Call of Cthulhu. It's like I have Pathfinder, The One Ring, Symbaroum, Call of Cthulhu, Candela. There's like, if one game is not your favorite, there's still so many others that you can play. So even though I'm not optimistic about some parts of the future, I am optimistic about TTRPGs because it's just getting better, in my opinion.
Nice. I know. Agreed. All right. My second question. Let me pull up my note
Oh my
app here.
God.
Surprise.
Can I see Can I see your glasses?
Oh, yeah. This one? Maybe.
No, these
Oh, cool.
are these sunglasses?
Yeah.
I don't want them to be reading glasses for the prop, but all right. Tabletop Optimist. Who is your favorite Dodoborne character?
Oh,
Oh, that's easy. One that hasn't been introduced yet. No, I'm kidding.
Oh,
just,
that's right.
Just wait till the future. There's a lot of myself that I see with like Kapi, with like the kind of like the sarcasm, the kind of like that shell that you have in front of yourself. Pistachio is like just fucking adorable. It's just so fun to watch. And then I just Crank is, it's like it's hard to describe, but it's like that kind of like that bridge between the two where it's like Pistachio's like, you're my best friend, but it's also like Kapi, you're also my best friend, for spoilers. But it's like I can't really say if I have like a mechanically, I'd probably say I'm more aligned with Kapi because I play as a rogue. But I also
Nice.
but I like what I was talking with Rowan about Pistachio is that the vine spell is such a perfect encapsulation of Pistachio as a character, where it's like they use it to protect their friends and assist their friends, which I feel like that's what the character's always aiming for. And I feel like there's a lot with Crank that we haven't got yet, which is where there's like a lot of like heaviness to that character. But it's like the character I love, where it's like they're going through so much, but they're trying to make other people happy with just delivering stale bread, stale food.
Yeah.
It's like I talked with Rowan about on Tuesday, was one of my favorite scenes in the MCU is when Mantis puts her hands on Drax, she feels the emptiness and the sadness that's inside of Drax. But you just see him smiling, looking at the sunset. And something about that with like makes me think of like Crank quite a bit. It's like if you were to get someone in there that's like an empath that could literally feel that person that character's emotions,
That's beautiful.
you have no idea what's in there. And I'm excited to see.
Okay.
I'm taking it
I would
personally.
honestly say though, probably Postmates. That was another moment that made me laugh insanely hard. Was like you're trying to take away my business. How am I supposed to compete against free? It's just that's
So cool.
that's just it's like everyone at the table makes me laugh. And it's like not trying to be like the fan, but it's like I want to be fans of the people I talk to. That's why I want to bring on people that I actually that's what this whole point is I see people online, I'm like, I want to figure out more about them than just what the standard posts will tell me. But it's like I feel like, and I was telling Rowan this, and you'll see it in the video, that you guys collaborate very well, which works very well for a collaborative based game.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You answered that so well. I was really banking on you just being like Pistachio, and I was gonna like pause a scene, and I thought
I was gonna do a bit.
I was gonna do a bit. I was gonna like throw the chair, and I was like, you could end the you could end the episode. It's not my house, and you could end the episode.
If I wasn't in the middle, I would have done that when you weren't like, Isaac is my favorite character because he's all the characters. So, but I'm in the middle. I can't go anywhere. It would have been too awkward.
Is this where we drop? Do we say Dodoborne?
Dodoborne season 2 coming out July 1st, first day of July, first Tuesday of July. You can expect it to come out. It's gonna be 3 hours long.
Oh my god.
We have a live band playing in the background of it. It's gonna be an incredible. We have special guests coming.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyways, when you cut like half the things I've said so that we don't get demonetized, I appreciate it.
I want to thank Rowan, Joe, and Isaac for joining. Make sure to check out the Dodoborne Podcast, which, by the way, the second season started on Tuesday, July 1st, and follow them on their socials, links provided below. Keep an eye out for the next episode of Level 1 to Now, as I'll be having a conversation with GM Justin. Thank you for watching, keep that glass half full, and have a great next game.